Hi, I'm Rick Dior. And that was a very seasonally appropriate Greensleeves, and that's from the book Sitting In with the Big Band, Volume 2. So I'm using this book for this series I'm doing on big band chart reading. So that tune, as everybody knows, is in 3/4, but this arrangement goes from 3/4 to 4/4 and back. It's a really nice arrangement, not too difficult. In fact, this whole series, the whole point of it is to not play anything that's too complex. I already have lots of those tunes on my big band playlist. So we're going to be focusing on some simpler tunes for this series. So this video today is on phrasing for these charts. So we're going to talk about long and short sounds, as well as catching these figures with long and short sounds. So first of all, before I go on, I'm just going to talk about my equipment here. Since the last video I posted, I got a lot of questions on what I was using. Once again, I'm just using this really basic practice kit so I can move it in and out of this part of my recording studio quickly. I just take the whole thing and pick it up and bring it in the other room pretty much every day, because I do have sessions in here most nights. So, I record the videos really early in the morning or really late at night, and then I just move the kit right after that. So I'm just using this Gretsch Catalina, which I've been using for a lot of videos recently. It's mic'd up with two overheads, two Sennheiser MKH 800s, which is a very nice microphone, small diaphragm, and just a bass drum mic, a D112, AKG, very inexpensive mic. You can get them used for about $150 at the most. So nothing fancy here, okay? The cymbals are the old Ks, which I've been using. I'll list those in the description. And the sizes of the drums are a 16-inch bass drum, a 12-inch rack tom, and a 14-inch floor tom. And I am using my Black Beauty today. So it's a Ludwig. I really like this for big band drumming. It's nice and live. It's got a really bright sound. One of my favorite snare drums, as you guys know. So that hopefully will answer the questions. Now, I do use some 15-inch hi-hats when I play big band. I like the sound of them, especially if I'm doing stuff with like the hi-hat rhythm. So they're really big and they fill it up. And these are old Ks as well, so they're not really that loud. They're just dark, and they're a little bit louder than you'd get out of a 14-inch pair of Ks. So I do change cymbals around and drums around when I play live big band gigs, and I'm not mic'd. I'll use a bigger kit. I have a Tama Star Classic kit that I like with a 22-inch bass drum and two rack toms, a 10, 12, and 14. And then I'll use maybe a set of Peisty cymbals that are a bit heavier. But for recording, these work great. They're beautiful sounding cymbals. They're dark. I like a darker sound with big band so it doesn't get annoying. I listen to a lot of these modern big band records, and the drummers, the drums are all processed. Not on all of them, but some of them. It's kind of almost a rock sound, and the cymbals are all processed. And I like the older sound. If you listen to Bob Florence with Nick Ceroli, or even the Buddy Rich records, the drums sound really great on those records because they're not mic'd every drum. A lot of times they'll just use a couple overheads and let him play. And of course, the Thad Jones Mel Lewis band, Mel Lewis's sound is what I love and grew up listening to. Other things or drummers you can listen to: Jeff Hamilton, great big band drummer, always has a great sound on those Clayton Hamilton big band records. Those are really great. Maria Schneider, those records are really great. Anything with Peter Erskine, the older stuff is really good. Stan Kenton or Maynard Ferguson. So there's a lot of good sounds, but I try to stay away from that real modern, compressed thing. If you listen to the Rob McConnell band, which is great, and Terry's a fantastic drummer, but that sound is what I don't like. The drums are real dead, and it's kind of processed. So I try to stay away from that. And that's just me personally, so you don't have to do that. That's just what I like. So that's the equipment and the sound I like to get. Now, short sounds on the drum set consist of sounds that don't ring too long and that have an attack. So those could be your snare drum, depending on how open it is. Certainly rim shots. all right? A choked hi-hat, a choked cymbal, and even if you hit your toms hard, they can be short. But of course, the smaller the tom, the shorter the ring. This floor tom is more of a long sound. So that works for that. So those are just some examples of short sounds. Now you can also use your bass drum, obviously, for a short sound. This little 16 is wide open, so it does ring a little. As much as a 16 will ring, but it does have a lot of impact too, because it's close mic'd. All right. But again, live playing, I use a 22. And I use it almost wide open, just a little bit of muffling. And I use a Gary Chaffee old school muffler for that. If you've seen them, it looks like a big inside muffler, but outside it clamps on. So those were great. And unfortunately, they're no longer made, but I do see them used at sometimes. Sometimes I see them. So those are the short sounds. Now the long sounds, obviously cymbals. So now, I explained in one of my videos recently that I like all of my cymbals to be ride and crash cymbals. And normally for big band drumming, I like bigger cymbals. So the smallest cymbal I have here besides my hi-hats is an 18. So I have 3 18s on this kit. This heavy 18 ride, this medium 18 crash ride, and this thin ride with rivets. It's really a crash. So those are the types of 18s that I like. They're all different sounding. And I'm not big on the really small cymbals. I will use 16s at times, but the smaller the cymbal, it's going to wipe out the band a lot of times. Now, if I'm playing a lot of Latin music, I'm certainly going to use smaller cymbals. Okay, I do big band Latin gigs somewhat often. And if it's a mix of, straight ahead and Latin, I will use a 16 or maybe even a 14. But for this, since it's all straight ahead stuff, I'm using bigger cymbals. So we get nice long sounds, especially with the rivets. You get long sounds out of here. Now, I ride on different cymbals at different times of the tune, as I explained in that first video. You saw me here play that during the sax soli section. At 89, I went to this Swish or China cymbal for that. I really like that sound. So we'll talk about some of these figures and how to catch them. Now, if you look at bar 37, that line here, and I'll put it on the screen, you see at the end of that line we have 4 bars of figures. And we have that marcato rooftop accent marking here. So that means you're playing a short note. Now in this case, it's trombones. TBNS means trombones. So that's a lower sound. So you can catch that with a higher pitch like your snare drum or your bass drum. That would sound good. So that figure right there, I'll play 4 bars at a time and then that 4 bars. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that's the simplest way that I would catch that. Now another way to catch it is to set it up with light fills, and I'll show you that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So you see there, I am setting those up. I'm playing something before the figure. Now in this case, since these are kind of just light backgrounds, I'm not going to set those up there. But later on in the tune, when we get to 105, that whole section there, and especially the shout section at 121, I'm definitely setting those up. So let's just play a little of that for you going in to 121. And here we're in 4. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see that I am using long sounds and short sounds at the same time, but I'm not just using the cymbal with the bass drum, which sounds like this. I'm doing this. I'm using the shank of the stick, in other words, the shoulder of the stick on the cymbal, so, which is a shorter sound than this. And that's one of your greatest weapons as a big band drummer, especially if you're just playing on the ride. You can catch all those figures with that shank. And you don't have to move anywhere. It's just right there, especially if you're playing really fast big band figures. So if you're playing a tune like this, you don't necessarily have time to move all over the place. So that's where that shoulder of that stick works great. And that's what I was doing there, filling in. Now, if you really want to get complex about it, you can fill in all of that, and that would sound like this. So again, we're starting at 119. 1, 2, 3, 4. To me, that's a little too much. But again, you could almost solo through that. So that's how those sections work. And I'm actually singing those figures in my head when I'm playing it. So I'm thinking, ba do da ba ba da ba 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 da ba 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 da ba 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 da. And excuse my horrible singing. But you see how I used the long sounds and the short sounds? So I'm actually playing that. That's what I'm doing in my head. I'm singing that like I would be a trumpet player and phrasing that. Tenuto notes longer, staccato notes shorter. If you can do that, you're going to really phrase a lot better and play more musically. Okay? So that's the basics of that long, short sound thing. And it takes years of practice to do this, but it's not that difficult. So the book I've recommended before in my first video was that Tom Morgan book, that jazz book, and I'll put it here on the screen. And that has lots and lots of figures, and he's got tracks with bass and piano, even some demo tracks with drums. So you can play these things over and over. I actually made a thing on my computer where I looped it because they only happen once on the CD, so they happen over and over again. And I use that to teach. It's so useful. And that's what I suggest for working on this kind of thing, is that package there, that book. It's called the Jazz Drummer's Workbook, I think. But again, I'll put it on the screen so you can see it. And then what you do is you graduate to some charts in that book, and of course all these other books that I listed in my first video a couple weeks ago. So, you know, you want to read through and play these as much as possible. And after a while, you just learn that language, and it's smooth sailing, really. And then, of course, you get into some more complicated tunes that might have a lot of hemiolas in there, and different kind of rhythms that are difficult to set up. But this is just straight ahead, simple big band drumming. And that's what I recommend and what I use to teach to start with. Let's just look at this last page here. Those figures at 154. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-da-ba-da-da. See how I'm singing that? So playing, they would be like this. And you'll notice when I have those quarter notes, I play that bass drum in the middle of it. That helps with the brass, ba 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 ba, so they can hear that upbeat. Ba, ba, da. Now you can easily overdo that, but I usually play it really lightly. Sometimes it's just more felt than heard. And then the editing's pretty straightforward. You just want to keep building that. I'll play from 178 for you. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So you can play those last notes. They're accented but tenuto long. You can play them on the cymbal like that, or you can play them like this. I think in the demo I played it on the drums. Either way. but definitely supportive there. So that's chapter 2 of this series, and the next chapter we're going to play a transition tune, which is a Latin tune that goes into swing, so back and forth. And there's a little trick to that too that I'll show you. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.